I walked into Linda's dining room expecting another peaceful Sunday family dinner. But what I found broke my heart into pieces. Tyler and Madison sat quietly at the beautifully set mahogany table, their small hands folded in their laps, staring down at empty gold-rimmed plates while their cousins Brandon and Ashley were already halfway through heaping portions of roast beef and mashed potatoes. Linda looked directly at me with cold eyes and announced, "Jessica's children eat first. Your children can wait for scraps." "My 8-year-old son didn't even look up," Jessica smirked, and added with vicious satisfaction, "They should know their place." The silence that followed felt like drowning. I watched my 6-year-old daughter's bottom lip tremble as she stared at the elaborate feast just out of reach. Linda had set the table with her finest china, crystal glasses, and silver cutlery, but somehow there wasn't enough food prepared for all 4 grandchildren to eat together. At least, that's what she claimed. I stood there for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 30 seconds, feeling my chest tighten with a rage I'd never experienced before. Derek was in the kitchen helping his father carve more meat, completely unaware of what was happening in the dining room. Linda and Jessica exchanged a look of pure satisfaction, their eyes gleaming with the pleasure of finally putting the quiet daughter in law in what they considered her proper place. Without saying a single word, I walked over to Tyler and gently touched his shoulder. Then I took Madison's small hand in mine. "Come on, babies. We're going home." Tyler looked up at me with confusion but stood immediately. Madison gathered her little purse that Shed insisted on bringing because she wanted to be fancy like Aunt Jessica. As we walked toward the front door, I could hear Linda telling Derek that Wed left suddenly, making it sound like I was being unreasonable and dramatic. Jessica called out with fake sweetness, "Drive safely, Brianna." "Well, save you some leftovers." I buckled my children into their car seats, my hands shaking with an emotion I couldn't quite name yet. Linda and Jessica stood at the front window watching us leave, and I could see their satisfied smiles even from the driveway. They thought they had won. They thought they had finally broken the woman who never fought back, who always kept quiet, who let their snide comments and subtle cruelty slide by without consequence. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The drive home was silent except for Madison's quiet sniffles in the back seat. Tyler kept looking out the window, his small face reflecting a wisdom that no 8-year-old should have to carry. When we pulled into our driveway, Madison finally spoke up in her tiny voice. "Mommy, why doesn't Grandma Linda like us?" I turned around to look at my children, these perfect little humans who deserved so much better than the treatment they'd been receiving for months. Tyler reached over and took his sister's hand, already learning to be her protector in ways that made my heart ache. "It's not about whether she likes you, sweetheart. Some grown-ups forget how to be kind, and that's their problem, not yours." I unbuckled them both and pulled them into the biggest hug I could manage. "But Mommy is going to make sure this never happens again." Once we were inside our house, I sent Tyler and Madison upstairs to play while I made 3 phone calls that would change everything. I'd been protecting Derek from the truth about his family's cruelty for too long, thinking I could handle their subtle abuse and keep the peace. But watching my children sit there like second-class citizens while being told to wait for scraps had awakened something fierce and protective in me that couldn't be contained anymore. My first call was to Patricia, my property management company's director. "I need immediate eviction proceedings started on the Riverside townhouse property. Today." Patricia's voice carried surprise. "Brianna, that's your mother. In-law's residence. Is everything all right? Start the paperwork. I want her out in 30 days. I hung up before she could ask more questions. The second call went to my finance team at Morrison & Associates. "Cancel the credit line extension for Jessica Hartwell immediately. Freeze all related accounts. Mom, that line has been active for 18 months. Are you certain?" "Completely certain. And Michael, I need you to document every transaction she's made in the past year. I want a complete record." I could hear typing on the other end as Michael pulled up the account information. "That's quite substantial, Mrs. Chen. I mean Mrs. Hartwell. Over 47,000 in charges just this quarter." The third call went to my attorney, Sarah Goldstein. "I need to start documenting emotional abuse of my children by extended family members. Can you recommend a family counselor who specializes in expert testimony?" Sarah had been my lawyer since Eid started my real estate company 8 years ago, and her voice immediately shifted to protective mode. "Brianna, what's happened? This sounds serious." "It is serious. I have recordings, witnesses, and now I have a plan." 3 minutes after Eid finished those calls, my phone started ringing. Linda's panicked voice filled our kitchen as Derek listened on speaker, having arrived home to find me calmly preparing dinner for our children. "Brianna, honey, there's been some terrible mistake. I got an eviction notice in my mailbox, but it says the property owner is B. Morrison Holdings. That's impossible because Derek told me he owned that townhouse." I looked at my husband's confused face as Linda continued her frantic explanation. "The notice says I have to be out in 30 days, but Derek, you promised me that townhouse was mine as long as I needed it." Before Derek could respond, my phone rang again. This time it was Jessica, her voice shrill with panic and rage. "Brianna, my credit cards were declined at the country club. The manager said my account was frozen by the primary cardholder." "What does that even mean? I had to leave my cart full of groceries and run out of there. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was?" Derek's face had gone completely pale as he began to piece together what was happening. I hung up on Jessica and turned to face my husband, the man I'd been married to for 9 years but who had never known the full extent of what I'd built from nothing. "Derek, we need to talk." I led him to our home office, a room he rarely entered because he assumed it was just where I did some bookkeeping for my small real estate business. I opened my laptop and showed him the property portfolio that had grown to include 63 residential properties, 12 commercial buildings, and a development company that employed 42 people. "Your mother has been living in a townhouse I bought 3 years ago. I've been paying her mortgage, her car lease, and her health insurance premiums. Jessica's credit line is tied to my business accounts. Brandon's private school tuition comes directly from my corporate education fund." Derek stared at the screen, scrolling through property listings that showed his wife owned buildings he drove past every day without realizing it. The luxury townhouse where his mother lived rent-free was valued at $340,000. Jessica's Range Rover lease payments had totaled $18,000 in the past year alone. "I don't understand. How long have you been supporting my family financially?" 2 years. Ever since your dad retired and their income dropped. You kept worrying about your mother's situation, so I quietly took care of it. I thought I was helping family, Derek. I thought I was helping people who loved our children." My phone rang again. This time it was Kevin, Jessica's husband, his voice strained with confusion. "Brianna, Jessica is having some kind of breakdown. She's screaming about credit cards and saying you've ruined her life. What's going on?" "Kevin, meet me for coffee tomorrow morning at 9. Grounded Coffee on Main Street. There are things you need to know about what's been happening to Tyler and Madison." After I hung up, Derek sat in stunned silence for several minutes, staring at documents that proved his quiet, unassuming wife had been secretly funding his family's entire lifestyle while they treated her children like they were beneath their cousins. "Brianna, why didn't you tell me how bad things had gotten?" "Because you love your family, and I didn't want to make you choose between them and us." "But Derek, I watched our daughter's heart break today. I watched our son learn to accept being treated as less important than other children. I can't protect your feelings anymore when your family is hurting our babies." The house phone rang, and Derek answered without thinking. Linda's voice was loud enough for me to hear every word. "Derek, you need to control your wife. She's having some kind of mental breakdown and trying to destroy our family. Jessica is beside herself, and I might lose my home because of whatever vindictive game Brianna is playing." Derek looked at me, then at the portfolio still open on my laptop screen, then at the framed photos on my desk showing me accepting the Businesswoman of the Year award from the Chamber of Commerce last spring. An award had been too busy to attend because he was helping Jessica move into a larger house that I was quietly funding. "Mom, Brianna isn't having a breakdown. You and Jessica are about to learn what happens when you mistreat someone who's been supporting you for 2 years without you even knowing it." By Tuesday morning, the consequences of my 3 phone calls had multiplied in ways that even I hadn't fully anticipated. I was in my office reviewing quarterly reports when Patricia called with the first update. "The eviction notice has been served, and Linda Hartwell called our office 16 times yesterday. She's demanding to speak with the property owner." Patricia's voice carried a mix of professional concern and barely suppressed amusement. "Should I tell her that you're the owner she's been demanding to speak with?" "Not yet. Let her figure it out on her own." The next call came from Michael at the finance company. Mrs. Hartwell, the secondary account holder, attempted to use the frozen credit line at 3 different establishments yesterday: a high-end spa, a luxury car dealership, and Nordstrom. Each time the card was declined, and according to our security monitoring, she became increasingly agitated with the staff. What about the transaction history I requested? Quite revealing. $64,000 in the past 12 months. High-end clothing, jewelry, spa treatments, expensive dinners, and a family vacation to Hawaii that cost $11,000. All charged to your business account under the family expense classification. I hung up and immediately called Derek at his engineering firm. Can you take an early lunch? I need you to see something. When Derek arrived at my office building, I watched his face as he really looked at the directory in the lobby for the first time. Morrison Holdings occupied 3 floors of the building he'd driven past hundreds of times, never realizing his wife's company was inside. Brianna, how long have I been completely blind to what you've built? We went up to the 3rd floor, where my team was working on the downtown revitalization project. Derek met Jennifer, my project manager, who had been coordinating with the City Planning Commission for 8 months. He met Robert, my lead contractor, who had been managing renovation projects on 6 historic buildings. He met Amanda, my financial analyst, who had been tracking investment returns that averaged 12% annually for the past 3 years. Your wife is being modest, Jennifer told Derek while showing him architectural plans for a new mixed-use development. She's transformed the downtown area and created over 200 jobs in the past 5 years. While we were reviewing project timelines, my assistant buzzed in to tell me that Linda and Jessica had arrived in the lobby, demanding to see the building owner about a rental dispute and frozen credit accounts. I looked at Derek, who nodded grimly. Let them come up. 5 minutes later, the elevator doors opened and Linda stormed out, followed by Jessica, who looked like she'd been crying for hours. They both stopped short when they saw Derek sitting in my office, surrounded by financial reports and property documents. Derek, thank goodness you're here, Linda said, rushing toward him. Your wife has completely lost her mind. She's trying to evict me from my home, and she's somehow managed to freeze Jessica's credit cards. You need to talk sense into her before she destroys our family. Jessica's mascara had left dark streaks down her cheeks, and her hands were shaking as she spoke. Derek, I tried to buy groceries yesterday and my card was declined. I had to ask Mrs. Patterson to loan me money at the checkout line. Do you know how humiliating that was? Derek stood up slowly and walked over to the wall where my business awards and certifications were displayed. City Council Recognition for Community Development. State Small Business Excellence Award. Chamber of Commerce Entrepreneur of the Year. Photos of ribbon, cutting ceremonies, and groundbreaking events that his family had never bothered to ask about. Mom, Jessica, I'd like you to meet the owner of this building. The owner of your townhouse, Mom. The person who's been paying for Jessica's lifestyle for the past 2 years. He gestured toward me with a mixture of pride and sadness. My wife, Brianna Morrison Hartwell. The silence that followed was deafening. Linda's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, recognition, and finally, dawning horror. Jessica actually stumbled backward and had to grab the doorframe for support. That's impossible, Linda whispered. Derek, you told me you were taking care of my housing situation. No, Mom, I told you not to worry about housing. I never said I was paying for it. Brianna handled everything because she knew I was stressed about your financial situation after Dad retired. Jessica's voice came out as a croak. The credit cards, the car, Brandon's school, all funded by my wife's business. The wife whose children you told to wait for scraps 3 days ago. I opened my laptop and showed them the same portfolio I'd shown Derek the night before. Property values, rental income, business expansion plans, employee payroll, community investment projects. The scope of what I'd built while they dismissed me as Derek's quiet, unremarkable wife who probably worked part-time at a real estate office. Linda, your townhouse is worth $340,000. I bought it specifically so you could live comfortably close to family. Jessica, your credit line had a $50,000 limit. I approved it because I wanted to help family members who I thought loved my children. Linda collapsed into a chair, her face completely drained of color. Derek, we didn't know. How could we have known? You could have asked. Derek replied quietly. You could have wondered how we afforded to help you so much. You could have treated my wife and children with basic respect instead of assuming she was someone you could look down on. Jessica was staring at the photos on my wall. Pictures of me shaking hands with the mayor, accepting awards, standing in front of construction sites wearing a hard hat with Morrison Holdings printed on the side. I need to know something, I said, looking directly at both women. When you told my children to wait for scraps Sunday night, when you told them they needed to know their place, did you think about how that would make them feel? Or were you just enjoying the chance to put someone you thought was beneath you in their place? Neither of them answered, which was answer enough. Derek's phone rang, and Kevin's voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. Derek, I just got fired from my job. They said the position was being eliminated, but I know that's not true. Is this connected to whatever's happening with Jessica's credit cards? Derek looked at me with raised eyebrows. I nodded. Kevin worked in marketing for Brennan Development. I recommended him for that position 2 years ago, and I've been one of Brennan's biggest clients. When I told them I was withdrawing my business due to family conflicts, Kevin's position became redundant. Jessica let out a sound that was half sob, half scream. You're destroying our lives. No, Jessica. I'm removing my support from people who thought it was acceptable to emotionally abuse my children. There's a difference. Over the next several days, Derek surprised everyone, including me, by becoming my fiercest protector and advocate. I came home from work Thursday evening to find him sitting at our kitchen table with a manila folder full of documents and his laptop open to what looked like a video editing program. What's all this? I asked, settling down next to him while Tyler and Madison worked on homework at the counter. Evidence, he said quietly, glancing toward the children to make sure they couldn't overhear. I've been documenting my family's behavior toward you and the kids for longer than you realize. He opened the folder and showed me printed photographs that made my stomach clench. Pictures of family gatherings where Tyler and Madison were sitting alone at the children's table, while Brandon and Ashley were invited to eat with the adults. Photos from last Christmas where my children's gifts were noticeably smaller and less expensive than their cousins. Screenshots of text message conversations that I had never seen. Derek, where did these come from? I started taking pictures about 6 months ago when I began noticing patterns. I thought maybe I was being oversensitive, but I wanted to document what was happening in case I wasn't imagining things. He scrolled through the text messages, and I felt my heart break all over again. Messages from Linda to Jessica. Derek's wife barely said 3 words at dinner again. She acts like she's too good to talk to us. Jessica's response. Maybe Shell finally realized this family isn't the right fit for her. More messages. Linda writing, I hope Derek eventually finds someone more suitable for our family's social level. Jessica replying, someone who understands how to dress appropriately and contribute to conversations. But the worst message was from just 2 weeks ago. Linda had written, I'm tired of pretending those children are as well behaved and intelligent as Brandon and Ashley. Jessica, your kids should always come first at family events. Derek needs to see the difference. Derek, how long have you known about these messages? I saw them by accident when Mom asked me to help her with her phone last month. She left the conversation open while I was showing her how to update her apps. His voice was thick with emotion. Brianna, I made copies of everything and took them to a lawyer. You did what? Derek pulled out another set of documents. Legal papers that I recognized as divorce preparation materials, but not in the way I had feared. I contacted Patricia Wong at Morrison Family Law 6 months ago. Not because I wanted to leave you, but because I wanted to make sure my family could never legally claim any portion of your business assets if they tried to manipulate me or threaten you through me. The papers showed that Derek had been working with a family attorney to create legal barriers that would protect my business empire from any potential claims from his relatives. He had restructured his own financial accounts so that his mother and sister couldn't argue that they had been led to believe Derek himself was supporting them. I've also been working with your legal team, he continued. Sarah Goldstein helped me understand how to document emotional abuse toward children in a way that would hold up if we ever needed to pursue legal action. He showed me video files on his laptop, recordings from family gatherings where Jessica could be heard telling Tyler he wasn't as smart as Brandon. Audio of Linda explaining to Madison that some children were naturally more attractive and well-mannered than others, clearly implying that Madison fell short. Derek, I had no idea you were aware of how bad things had gotten. I was aware, and I was collecting evidence, but I wasn't stopping it fast enough. Sunday night, when Mom and Jessica humiliated our children, I realized I'd been failing as a husband and father by trying to protect their feelings instead of protecting my own family. As if summoned by our conversation, Derek's phone rang. Linda's name appeared on the screen, and Derek put it on speaker without asking me first. "Derek, honey, I need to talk to you about this situation with Brianna. I think she's having some kind of breakdown, and I'm worried about her mental health. Jessica and I have been talking, and we think you might need to consider getting her some professional help." Derek's response was calm but firm. "Mom, I need to tell you something, and I want you to listen carefully. I recorded our conversation at Dad's birthday party last month." There was silence on the other end of the line. "The conversation where you told Jessica that you hoped I would eventually leave Brianna for someone more appropriate to our family's standards. The conversation where you both agreed that Tyler and Madison were less important than Brandon and Ashley because they weren't as naturally gifted. Derek, that's not. We were just, Mom, I have recordings, photographs, text messages, and witness statements documenting how you and Jessica have treated my wife and children for the past year. I've been working with lawyers to protect Brianna's business from any future claims you might make. And I've been working with child psychologists to document the emotional impact of your behavior on Tyler and Madison." The silence stretched so long that I thought Linda had hung up. "Are you telling me you're choosing her over your own mother?" "I'm telling you I'm choosing my children's emotional well-being over my mother's ego. There's a difference." Another call came in, this time from Kevin. Derek answered it immediately. "Derek, I need to apologize." Kevin's voice was heavy with exhaustion. "I witnessed what happened Sunday night at your mom's house, and I should have said something immediately. Jessica's behavior toward Tyler and Madison was unacceptable, and I've been a coward for not standing up to her sooner." "Kevin, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I've been documenting Jessica's behavior too, because I was starting to worry about what she was teaching Brandon and Ashley about how to treat other people." "Derek, she's been teaching our children that they're better than other kids based on money and social status." Derek looked at me with surprise. We hadn't expected support from Kevin. "I want to bring Brandon and Ashley over to apologize to Tyler and Madison personally, if Brianna thinks that would be appropriate. And Derek, I want you to know that Jessica and I are separated as of this morning. I can't be married to someone who thinks it's acceptable to emotionally abuse children." After Derek hung up, we sat in stunned silence. I had expected to fight this battle alone, with Derek caught in the middle trying to keep peace. I had never imagined that he'd been quietly building legal protections for our family, or that Kevin would become an ally. "There's something else," Derek said, pulling out one final document. "I scheduled family therapy for all 4 of us starting next week. Dr. Martinez specializes in helping children recover from emotional manipulation by family members." Tyler looked up from his homework. "Dad, what's emotional manipulation?" Derek went over to our son and knelt down to his level. "It's when someone tries to make you feel bad about yourself so they can feel better about themselves. But the most important thing for you to know is that it's never going to happen again." By the following week, Jessica had hired an attorney and was threatening to sue me for emotional distress, defamation, and what her lawyer called financial manipulation. Her attorney, Bradley Richardson, called my office Tuesday morning demanding a meeting to discuss what he termed my vindictive and illegal actions against his client. Sarah Goldstein and I met with Richardson and Jessica at my attorney's downtown office. Jessica arrived wearing a designer suit I recognized from her recent shopping sprees, apparently not understanding that her choice of outfit undermined her claims of financial hardship. "Mrs. Hartwell," Richardson began, "my client has suffered severe emotional and financial distress as a result of your arbitrary and punitive actions. She's been publicly humiliated, financially devastated, and emotionally traumatized by your decision to withdraw support that she had been led to believe was permanent." Sarah responded before I could speak. "Mr. Richardson, are you alleging that my client had a legal obligation to financially support your client indefinitely?" "I'm alleging that my client reasonably relied on financial support that was suddenly and maliciously withdrawn." Sarah opened her briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. "Here are bank records showing that Mrs. Brianna Hartwell provided financial support to Jessica Hartwell voluntarily, with no written agreement, no promised duration, and no legal obligation. Here are recordings of Mrs. Jessica Hartwell telling my client's children that they should know their place and wait for scraps. And here are witness statements from multiple individuals documenting a pattern of emotional abuse toward minor children." Richardson's confident expression began to falter as Sarah continued. Furthermore, we have documentation that Mrs. Jessica Hartwell used credit accounts provided by my client to purchase luxury goods, while simultaneously teaching her own children to view my client's children as inferior. Would you like to explain to me how my client withdrawing voluntary financial support from someone who was abusing her children constitutes illegal behavior? Jessica spoke up for the first time. I never abused anyone's children. I was trying to teach them proper behavior and social awareness by telling a 6-year-old girl that she needed to wait for scraps while her cousins ate first. Sarah's voice was ice cold, by explaining to an 8-year-old boy that some children are naturally more deserving than others. The meeting ended with Richardson advising Jessica that she had no legal case, and that pursuing litigation would likely result in counterclaims for emotional abuse that could affect her custody arrangement with Kevin. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Margaret Chen, a social worker with Child Protective Services. Mrs. Hartwell, we received a report regarding differential treatment of children in your extended family. While our investigation found no evidence of actionable abuse, we do have concerns about the emotional environment some children have been exposed to. I understand. What kind of concerns? Specifically, we're concerned about children being taught that their worth is determined by their family's financial status, and about the psychological impact of differential treatment during family gatherings. Margaret explained that while Linda and Jessica's behavior didn't meet the legal definition of child abuse, it had created what she called a documented pattern of emotional favoritism that could be referenced in future custody or family court proceedings. Mrs. Hartwell, I want you to know that your decision to remove your children from that environment was appropriate and protective. Too often, parents allow extended family dysfunction to continue because they don't want to rock the boat. The next day, the local newspaper ran a story about my donation of a new playground to Tyler and Madison's elementary school. The article mentioned Morrison Holdings and quoted Principal Roberts about my company's commitment to supporting local families and children's development. By Thursday, the ripple effects had reached Jessica's social circle at the country club. Her friend Melissa called me directly, which shocked me since we'd never spoken privately before. Brianna, I owe you an apology, Melissa said. A group of us had lunch yesterday, and we started talking about what happened with Jessica's credit issues. Several women shared stories about things Jessica has said about other people's, children, and families over the years. What kind of things? Comments about children whose parents couldn't afford certain activities or clothes. Remarks about families who vacation locally instead of traveling internationally. Jessica made a lot of people feel judged and excluded. But we stayed quiet because we didn't want drama. Melissa went on to explain that Jessica had been asked to resign from the Children's Charity Auction Committee after other members learned about her treatment of Tyler and Madison. When we found out that you've been quietly supporting local families through your business and that Jessica was treating your children badly while living off your generosity, it changed how a lot of us see the whole situation. Friday brought news that Linda was moving out of the townhouse 2 weeks early, having accepted a spot in a senior living community across town. Kevin called to tell us that Brandon and Ashley would be spending alternate weekends with him, away from Jessica's influence, while they worked through family therapy. The kids are confused about why their mom is so angry all the time now, Kevin explained. But they're also starting to ask questions about why they were taught to think they were better than Tyler and Madison. It's going to take time, but I think this crisis might actually help them develop better values. That evening, Derek found me in our home office, staring at financial reports but not really reading them. Are you having second thoughts about any of this? He asked gently. No, but I'm wondering if I should have acted sooner, before it got to the point where Tyler and Madison had to experience that level of humiliation. Derek sat down next to me and took my hand. Brianna, you tried to handle this quietly and diplomatically for months. You gave my family every opportunity to treat our children with basic respect. What happened Sunday night wasn't the beginning of their cruelty. It was just the moment when their cruelty became impossible to ignore or excuse. He was right, but the guilt of not protecting my children sooner still weighed heavily on me. Dr. Martinez, our family therapist, had explained that children who experience differential treatment within families often struggle with self-worth issues that can last for years. The important thing, Derek continued, is that Tyler and Madison will grow up knowing that their parents will always protect them, Even when it's difficult or expensive or complicated, they'll never again doubt whether they deserve to be treated with dignity. As if summoned by our conversation, Tyler appeared in the doorway wearing his Batman pajamas. "Mom, Dad? I heard you talking about that dinner at Grandma's house." Derek and I exchanged glances. "What did you want to say about it, buddy?" "I just wanted you to know that Madison and I weren't really surprised. Aunt Jessica and Grandma Linda have been treating us different from Brandon and Ashley for a long time. We just didn't know we were allowed to tell you about it." My heart broke all over again. "Tyler, you're always allowed to tell us when someone makes you feel bad. Always. I know that now. And Mom? I'm proud that you're successful and important. Brandon's mom always acted like you weren't very smart, but I knew that was wrong because you helped me with my math homework and you know everything." After tucking Tyler back into bed, Derek and I talked until nearly midnight about how we would handle future family relationships and what boundaries we needed to establish to protect our children's emotional development. We had no idea that the hardest confrontation was still ahead of us. The following Monday brought an unexpected call from Mrs. Patterson, the parent coordinator at Tyler and Madison's school. She asked if I could meet with her and the school counselor about what she described as some concerns that have come to light about family dynamics affecting multiple children. I arrived at Roosevelt Elementary that afternoon to find Mrs. Patterson and the school counselor, Dr. Williams, waiting in the small conference room with several other parents I recognized but had never spoken with at length. "Mrs. Hartwell, thank you for coming," Dr. Williams began. "Over the past week, several parents have approached us with concerns about interactions they've witnessed between Jessica Hartwell and various children at school events." Maria Santos, mother of Tyler's classmate Carlos, spoke first. "At the Halloween carnival last month, I watched Jessica tell my son that his costume wasn't very creative because it came from Walmart instead of being custom made. Carlos cried in the car afterward because he thought his costume wasn't good enough." Another parent, Jennifer Wright, added, "At the spring picnic, Jessica made a comment to my daughter about how some families can afford to bring store-bought desserts while others have to make homemade ones. She said it like homemade was somehow inferior." Dr. Williams pulled out a folder. "We've documented several incidents where Jessica Hartwell has made comments to children about their families' financial circumstances, their clothes, or their academic performance in ways that were clearly intended to establish a hierarchy among the children. But more concerning," Mrs. Patterson continued, "is that Brandon and Ashley have been modeling this behavior toward their classmates. They showed me incident reports documenting times when Brandon had told classmates their families couldn't afford nice things, and occasions when Ashley had excluded children from playground games based on what she called their level. Mrs. Hartwell, we want you to know that we've never observed this type of behavior from Tyler or Madison. In fact, both of your children consistently include others and show empathy toward classmates who might be struggling." Maria Santos leaned forward. "When I found out what happened at your mother-in-law's house, and then learned that you own Morrison Holdings, it all made sense. Jessica was treating you badly while living off your success, and she was teaching her children to treat other people the same way." Dr. Williams explained that the school had decided to implement a new anti-bullying program specifically focused on economic discrimination after recognizing the pattern of behavior that had affected multiple families. "We're also recommending that Brandon and Ashley work with our guidance counselor to address the values they've internalized about how to treat other children." That evening, Kevin called to tell us that Head enrolled Brandon and Ashley in a different school for the following year, one with more economic diversity, where they would learn to interact with children from various backgrounds. "The kids are resistant to the idea," Kevin admitted, "but Jessica's influence has been toxic for their character development. They need to learn that a person's worth isn't determined by their family's bank account." Wednesday brought another surprise. Pastor Williams from our church called to request a private meeting about what he described as some concerns brought to my attention about conflicts within your family. When Derek and I met with Pastor Williams that evening, he explained that Linda had approached him seeking support for what she described as emotional and financial abuse by her daughter-in-law. "I listened to Mrs. Hartwell's concerns," Pastor Williams said carefully, "but I have to tell you that her version of events didn't align with what I've observed about your family's character over the years you've been attending services here." He went on to explain that several congregation members had approached him about Linda's attempts to spread negative stories about me. "Mrs. Morrison. Mrs. Hartwell, I've watched you quietly volunteer for our food pantry for 3 years. You've donated to our scholarship fund, helped organize the children's Christmas program, and never sought recognition for any of it. When Mrs. Linda Hartwell suggested you were vindictive and mentally unstable, it didn't match the person our congregation knows. Pastor Williams also revealed that had been contacted by the local newspaper about my business success and community involvement. They're planning a feature story about successful women entrepreneurs who are making a positive impact on the community. Your company's economic development work has created jobs and revitalized downtown, but you've never sought publicity for it. The article ran in Sunday's paper with the headline, "Local Developer Quietly Transforms Downtown While Supporting Family Values." It included quotes from city council members about Morrison Holdings, ethical business practices and commitment to community development, and mentioned my company's policy of hiring locally and supporting family-owned businesses. Derek found me reading the article Sunday morning, tears streaming down my face. "What's wrong? It's a positive story." "I'm not crying because I'm sad. I'm crying because for the first time in 2 years, I feel like people see who I really am, instead of who Linda and Jessica decided I was." Derek wrapped his arms around me. "Brianna, you never needed their approval or recognition. You built an empire while they were busy trying to tear you down. You protected our children while maintaining your integrity. You handled this whole situation with more grace and strength than anyone had a right to expect." That afternoon, Kevin brought Brandon and Ashley over to our house. The children were nervous and quiet as they approached Tyler and Madison, who were playing in our backyard. "Tyler, Madison," Brandon said formally, "we want to apologize for how we treated you at family dinners and other times. Our mom taught us to think we were better than you. But that was wrong," Ashley added. "We're sorry we didn't share our toys or include you in games. Our dad is teaching us that all kids should be treated the same." Tyler, being 8 and naturally forgiving, immediately invited his cousins to play on our swing set. Madison was more cautious, but gradually warmed up as the afternoon progressed. Kevin and Derek talked while the children played, and I overheard Kevin saying, "I should have stood up to Jessica's behavior years ago. I was so focused on avoiding conflict that I let her teach our kids values that I'm ashamed of now." Watching the 4 children play together normally for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope that our family could heal from the damage Linda and Jessica had caused. But I also knew that the final confrontation was still coming. 6 weeks after the Sunday dinner incident, Derek arranged what he called a final family meeting to determine whether any relationship could be salvaged with his mother and sister. The meeting was scheduled at Dr. Rodriguez Family Counseling Center, neutral territory where everyone would have to follow professional guidelines for communication. I agreed to attend with one non-negotiable condition. Linda and Jessica had to bring written letters acknowledging specifically how they had mistreated Tyler and Madison, along with concrete plans for how they would demonstrate genuine change in their behavior toward all children in the family. Derek had been clear about my requirements when he called them. "This isn't a negotiation. This isn't a discussion about different perspectives. This is an opportunity for accountability and potential reconciliation, but only if Mom and Jessica are willing to take full responsibility for their actions." The night before the meeting, I barely slept. Tyler and Madison were staying with my friend Carol so they wouldn't be affected by whatever emotional intensity might arise. Derek and I had discussed the possibility that this meeting could end with permanent estrangement from his family. "Are you prepared for that possibility?" I asked him, as we drove to Dr. Rodriguez's office. "I'm prepared for whatever happens, as long as our children never again have to question whether they're worthy of love and respect." Linda and Jessica were already in the counseling center's conference room when we arrived. Linda looked older than I'd seen her before, stress having added new lines around her eyes. Jessica appeared defiant, her arms crossed and her jaw set in a way that suggested she was there under protest. Dr. Rodriguez explained the ground rules. Each person would have uninterrupted time to speak, no personal attacks would be tolerated, and the focus would be on Tyler and Madison's well-being rather than on adult grievances. "Mrs. Linda Hartwell, Derek asked you to prepare a written acknowledgement of how your behavior affected your grandchildren. Do you have that with you?" Linda pulled out a single sheet of paper and cleared her throat. "I want to apologize if Tyler and Madison felt hurt by anything I said or did. I was raised in a different generation where children learned respect through structure and hierarchy. I never intended to make them feel unloved. And I hope they can understand that everything I did came from a place of wanting them to develop character and discipline. The letter continued in the same vein, focusing more on defending her intentions than acknowledging the impact of her actions. There was no mention of telling my children to wait for scraps, no recognition of the emotional damage caused by differential treatment, and no concrete plan for behavioral change. Dr. Rodriguez turned to Jessica. Mrs. Jessica Hartwell, do you also have a letter prepared? Jessica's response was immediate and sharp. I don't have a letter because I don't believe I did anything wrong. I have high standards for children's behavior. And I believe in teaching kids that different families have different circumstances. Brandon and Ashley were well behaved and deserved to eat first. Tyler and Madison needed to learn patience and respect. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Rodriguez looked at Derek and me with an expression that suggested she'd rarely encountered such a complete lack of accountability in a family counseling session. Derek, Dr. Rodriguez said gently, you mentioned that Brianna had specific requirements for potential reconciliation. Would you like to present those now? Derek pulled out a typed document that we'd prepared together. Mom, Jessica, Brianna is willing to restore financial support and stop legal proceedings if you agree to these conditions. 6 months of family therapy focusing on how differential treatment affects children, written apology letters to Tyler and Madison that they feel comfortable accepting, meaning letters that acknowledge harm rather than defending intentions, a commitment to treating all grandchildren equally at family gatherings for the next 2 years, and a public acknowledgement to extended family members that you mistreated Brianna's children and take responsibility for your actions. Linda's face flushed red. Those demands are completely unreasonable. You're asking me to humiliate myself publicly and admit to things I don't believe I did wrong. Jessica was even more direct. I'm not going to therapy to be told that I should lower my standards for children's behavior. Brandon and Ashley are gifted students who excel at everything they do. Tyler and Madison are ordinary kids who need to learn that not everyone gets the same treatment in life. I felt something inside me shift as I listened to Jessica's words. She wasn't just refusing to acknowledge her cruelty. She was doubling down on it, reaffirming her belief that my children were inherently less deserving than hers. Dr. Rodriguez, I said, standing up slowly, I think I've heard everything I needed to hear. I turned to face Linda and Jessica directly. You've both just confirmed that you believe Tyler and Madison deserve less love, less food, less respect, and less consideration than Brandon and Ashley. You've made it clear that you see my children as inferior and you intend to continue treating them that way. My voice remained calm, but I could feel the power of absolute certainty behind my words. Linda, you're moving out of the townhouse I bought for you because I will not use my resources to support someone who emotionally abuses my children. Jessica, your credit line was canceled because I will not fund the lifestyle of someone who teaches children to view others as beneath them. I looked at Derek, who nodded for me to continue. But more than that, you've both lost the privilege of being part of Tyler and Madison's lives. You will not attend their school events, birthday parties, or holiday celebrations. You will not be alone with them. You will not have the opportunity to continue damaging their self-worth and emotional development. Jessica stood up angrily. Derek, you're going to let your wife destroy our family over her overprotective paranoia. Derek's response was immediate and final. Jessica, you just called my children ordinary while claiming yours are superior. Mom, you just defended telling 6-year-old Madison to wait for scraps. Neither of you has shown a moment of genuine remorse for hurting children. Brianna isn't destroying our family. She's protecting it. Linda made one final attempt. Derek, I'm your mother. Family is supposed to forgive and work through problems together. You're right, Mom. Family is supposed to protect each other, especially the most vulnerable members. Tyler and Madison are 8 and 6 years old. They deserved protection from the adults who were supposed to love them. Instead, you taught them that their worth was conditional, and their place was beneath their cousins. Dr. Rodriguez spoke into the silence that followed. This session has made it clear that reconciliation isn't possible without accountability and genuine behavior change. Derek and Brianna, you've made a decision that prioritizes your children's emotional health. Linda and Jessica, you've made it clear that you're not prepared to acknowledge or change behaviors that have harmed children. As we gathered our things to leave, I felt a profound sense of peace that I hadn't expected. The confrontation he'd been dreading had actually provided perfect clarity. Linda and Jessica had removed any doubt about their character and priorities by doubling down on their treatment of my children. "Derek," I said as we walked to our car, "I know this is hard because they're your family. Brianna, you and Tyler and Madison are my family." What we just witnessed was two people who value their ego more than children's well-being. I'm not losing anything important. That evening, Tyler asked me if he would ever see Grandma Linda and Aunt Jessica again. "Maybe someday, sweetheart. But only if they learn to treat you and Madison with the love and respect you deserve. Until then, we're going to focus on the people who already know how wonderful you are." Madison, wise beyond her 6 years, said, "Mom, I don't want to see them again until they're nice. It hurts my feelings when grown-ups are mean." "Then we won't see them, baby. Your feelings matter. And you should never have to accept being treated badly by anyone, even family." That night, I realized that my true victory wasn't the financial consequences it imposed or the legal protections it established. My real triumph was creating a world where Tyler and Madison would grow up knowing their worth wasn't negotiable. 6 months later, I'm sitting in the same conference room where our family confrontation took place, but this time it's filled with laughter as Tyler and Madison work with Dr. Rodriguez on what she calls confidence-building exercises. Both children have thrived in therapy, developing strong self-advocacy skills and learning to recognize and reject attempts by others to diminish their self-worth. Tyler, now 9 years old, recently told his teacher that he disagreed with how she grouped students for a project because it seemed unfair to his friend Carlos. When the teacher asked him to explain, Tyler said, "Everyone deserves to be treated equally, and it's okay to speak up when something seems wrong." Dr. Rodriguez called it a breakthrough moment, showing that Tyler has internalized the lesson that his voice matters and his perspective is valuable. Madison has become what Derek calls a fierce defender of fairness at school. When she saw older children excluding a kindergarten student from playground games, she organized several classmates to create a new game that included everyone. Her teacher told me that Madison has a natural ability to help other children feel valued and included. Derek and I have grown closer through the process of protecting our family and establishing healthy boundaries. Couples therapy helped us address how his family dynamics had affected our marriage in ways we hadn't fully recognized. Derek has learned to prioritize our immediate family's well-being over extended family harmony. And I've learned to communicate my concerns directly, rather than hoping problems will resolve themselves. "I spent years thinking I was keeping peace," Derek told Dr. Martinez during one of our sessions, "but I was actually enabling abuse by allowing it to continue unchallenged." Our marriage is stronger because we've both learned that protecting each other and our children requires active courage, not passive hope. The legal protections Derek established have proven wise. 3 months ago, Jessica attempted to claim that she had been promised permanent financial support and that my withdrawal of funding constituted breach of contract. Sarah Goldstein was able to dismiss Jessica's claims immediately using the documentation Derek had prepared. More importantly, the formal documentation of Linda and Jessica's treatment of Tyler and Madison has created a legal record that protects our children from future manipulation or custody complications. Linda's transformation has been the most surprising development. After moving to Sunset Manor, an assisted living community, she began volunteering in the facility's childcare program where working parents can leave their children during evening shifts. Exposure to families from diverse economic backgrounds has slowly changed her perspective. 2 months ago, Linda sent a letter to Tyler and Madison through Derek. Not the defensive justification she'd offered during our counseling session, but a genuine acknowledgement of her behavior and its impact. "Tyler and Madison, I want you to know that the way I treated you was wrong. You didn't deserve to be told to wait for scraps. And you didn't deserve to be treated as less important than your cousins. I was wrong about what makes children valuable, and I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm learning to be a better person, and I hope that someday you'll give me a chance to show you how much I love you." Tyler and Madison weren't ready to see Linda in person, but Tyler wrote back, "Thank you for saying sorry, Grandma Linda. I hope you keep learning to be nice to all kids." Madison drew a picture of herself smiling and wrote, "I forgive you, but I'm still careful," in her 6-year-old handwriting. Dr. Rodriguez explained that the children's responses show healthy boundary setting. They're capable of forgiveness without rushing into situations that might harm them emotionally. Jessica's situation has been more complicated. Her marriage to Kevin ended in divorce, with Kevin receiving primary custody of Brandon and Ashley after a custody evaluator determined that Jessica's value system was harmful to the children's social and emotional development. Kevin has done remarkable work helping Brandon and Ashley unlearn the discriminatory attitudes their mother taught them. He enrolled them in Lincoln Elementary, a school with significant economic diversity, where they've learned to form friendships based on character rather than family wealth. Brandon, now 10, recently told Kevin, "I'm ashamed of how I treated Tyler and Madison. I want to be friends with them again, but I understand if they don't trust me yet." Ashley, 8 years old, has begun bringing homemade lunches to school specifically because she wants to be like the kids who have moms who cook for them, rather than viewing homemade food as inferior to expensive catered meals. Kevin brings the children to visit Tyler and Madison once a month now, always with advance notice, and always in settings where our children feel comfortable. The relationships are healing slowly, with genuine friendship developing based on mutual respect rather than forced family obligation. Jessica herself has largely disappeared from our social circles. She moved to a different part of town and, according to mutual acquaintances, has struggled to maintain the lifestyle she was accustomed to. More importantly, she's lost the social influence she once wielded because people in our community now understand her character. My business has expanded significantly, partly because the newspaper article about Morrison Holdings brought positive attention from investors and city planners. We've broken ground on 2 new mixed-use developments that will bring affordable housing and small business opportunities to previously underdeveloped areas of town. But the most meaningful expansion has been the establishment of the Tyler and Madison Educational Foundation, which provides scholarships and support for children who face family conflict or economic disadvantage. The foundation's mission statement reads, "Every child deserves to know. Their inherent worth is not determined by family wealth, social status, or adult approval." Last week, I spoke at a conference for women entrepreneurs about the importance of financial independence in protecting family values. During the question and answer session, a young mother asked how I found the courage to stand up to family members who were mistreating my children. The courage came from realizing that protecting my children's emotional well-being was more important than protecting adults' feelings, I told her. When you see someone teaching your children that they're less worthy than others, you have to choose between keeping peace and keeping your children safe. There's only one right choice. 3 months ago, Tyler and Madison started taking martial arts classes, not because they need to defend themselves physically, but because the instructor emphasizes inner strength, self-respect, and standing up for others who are being treated unfairly. Madison told me last week, "Mom, if someone ever tries to make me feel small again, I'll remember that I'm strong and I matter." Tyler added, "And if someone tries to make other kids feel small, I'll stand up for them like you stood up for us." Derek and I have established new family traditions that emphasize equality and inclusion. Our Sunday dinners are open, invitation events where any of the children's friends are welcome, and we make sure there's always enough food for everyone who shows up. During these dinners, Tyler and Madison practice being hosts who make sure every guest feels valued and included. These kids are learning to create the kind of family environment they want to live in. Dr. Rodriguez observed during our last session, "They're developing leadership skills based on inclusion rather than exclusion." The most important lesson I've learned through this experience is that true strength isn't about having power over others, but about using whatever power you have to protect people who are vulnerable. Linda and Jessica mistook my quiet nature for weakness, but my greatest strength has always been my ability to build something lasting while staying true to my values. I also learned that financial success means nothing if it doesn't serve love and protection. The business empire I built became truly valuable only when I used it to defend my children's right to be treated with dignity. Derek has learned that family loyalty means being loyal to family values of love, respect, and protection, not blindly supporting family members who violate those values. Real family, he told Tyler and Madison recently, are the people who make you feel safe, loved, and valued. Biology doesn't automatically create family relationships. Behavior does. Tyler and Madison have learned the most important lesson of all. Their worth is inherent and non-negotiable. No adult has the right to make them feel inferior, and they have the right to expect fair treatment from everyone in their lives. 6 months ago, my children sat at a dinner table with empty plates while being told they weren't good enough to eat with their cousins. Today, they're confident, empathetic children who understand their own value and work to help others recognize theirs. When people ask me if I have any regrets about how I handled the situation with Linda and Jessica, my answer is always the same. I regret waiting as long as I did to take action. I regret every family gathering where my children felt less important than their cousins. I regret every subtle put down I allowed to pass unchallenged in the name of keeping peace. But I don't regret protecting my children, even when it was expensive, complicated, and painful. I don't regret using my resources to defend people I love. And I don't regret teaching Tyler and Madison that they have the right to demand respectful treatment from everyone in their lives, including family members. The luxury lifestyle Linda and Jessica enjoyed collapsed in minutes because it was built on cruelty toward children. But what Derek and I have built together, a family foundation based on love, respect, and protection, will last for generations. As I watch Tyler teaching Madison how to ride her new bicycle in our backyard, both children laughing and encouraging each other, I know that the most valuable thing I ever built wasn't a business empire or property portfolio. It was a family where children know they are loved, valued, and protected, no matter what anyone else tries to tell them. That's a legacy worth fighting for. Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace with family members and protecting someone you love? How do you think parents should handle situations where extended family members treat children differently? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video. Subscribe to our channel for more stories about family strength and resilience, and share this with anyone who might need to hear that protecting children is always the right choice. Thank you for listening, and remember that your worth is never up for debate by anyone who claims to love you.